Hey, Andy here from builderhottub.com. In this video, we're going to follow Paul from New York and his DIY hot tub journey. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so for those of you that regularly watch the videos on this channel, you will know that these are my favourite kinds of videos to make, and they're the ones where we start right at the beginning of somebody's hot tub journey, and we're going to see just how far Paul has come with his. Now, Paul got in touch in September. It was the 23rd of September, and this was the message that he actually sent me through the website over at builderhottub.com. So as you can see, he was looking to build a DIY hot tub, and he wanted to integrate it with his new heating system that he was switching over to. Now, with projects like this, they don't always start straight away, and this of course was exactly the same with Paul's build. So we went back and forth on email for a number of months, and it wasn't until February of 2024 when he was actually ready to move forward with a custom design. So armed with the information that Paul had sent me about what he was looking for, this was what I created for him. So this was the original render of what he was looking to build. He wanted different heights within the tub for different people. He wanted different jets in different locations. He knew exactly what he wanted. Like most of my clients, not quite sure how to get there. So that's why he got in touch. That's why he wanted my help. And this whole process of the design and getting things exactly how Paul wanted it, it took about a month. Again, it's different times for different people. Paul is extremely busy with his work and has different shift patterns, so we were fitting in the Zoom calls and the emails and the back and forths in between all of this. So the actual build started in late April 2024, and this was how things started. As you can see, he'd marked out the area on his backyard where he was going to be building his DIY hot tub, and his idea was to have the control room in his basement. So the window that you can see there is a window into the basement. The pipes are all going to go through there, and he was going to keep the heat exchanger, which we'll talk about later, the spa pack, filter, pumps, all of that was going to be housed in the basement. Now, before we go any further, always a great opportunity for me to say, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that notification icon to be notified when my videos go live. I do a long form video every single week, a whole bunch of shorts, and everything on my channel focuses on DIY hot tubs, plunge pools, parts, and pretty much everything in between. So as you can probably tell, my anticipation of sharing all of this with you is bubbling over, because I've been badgering Paul for months and months to send me all of these pictures so I could put this together. So Paul, just a quick thank you for sending all of this through to help me make this video and share your journey with everybody else. So with all of our DIY hot tubs, there's always some digging involved, and Paul roped in his sons to help him. It's a true family affair, and he got one of his sons to start digging out the hot tub, and you can see how that all began behind me here. So the first stage, once the hot tub was down to depth, was to put in some gravel. You've then got to compact it, because you've got to make that base onto which you're going to build. So what Paul did was he got the gravel in, he got that whacker plate, you can see that behind me, whack all of that down nice and firm, and then Paul's actually put insulation underneath the slab, and you can see that behind me here. Not everybody does it. There's always two schools of thought with the insulation in a slab. You know, do you, don't you? Really personal preference. I always sit on the fence with insulation and putting it in the base. You can do it. Some people don't do it. It's really up to you, as long as it's done properly. So you've got to make sure that you do have your gravel base, and then you've got to have enough thickness. It's normally 6 to 8 inches of base for your DIY hot tub. So for the base, we had gravel, compacted, insulation, rebar, and all of that then was topped off with concrete, and this is what it looks like when it's been completed. With the base done, it was then on to putting in the walls. Paul was using the hollow CMU blocks. CMU is concrete masonry unit. Really easy to use, really inexpensive to buy. Lay them like block or bricks, and you then add rebar into the center of them for the strength, and you fill them all full of concrete. So it's a pretty straightforward process to create the walls, and those walls are then super strong. And you can also see that there was the vertical rebar in there from the base to tie it all in nice and tightly. Now, Paul's build, what I've absolutely loved about the whole process is that it's been a real family affair. He's roped all of his sons in there to help him on various parts of it. They've all been involved, and it's always great to see it when it becomes a whole family affair of building the DIY hot tub, because let's face it, everybody's going to use it afterwards. Now, it wasn't and hasn't been all plain sailing for Paul and his DIY hot tub build. And he won't mind me sharing this with you. He's had a couple of jitters along the way. I remember the first one was just after he started digging, and he sort of got in touch and said, I don't know if I've bitten off more than I can chew here. And as I said to him there, and as I say to everybody, at some point you always feel that it's not going to work and you've bitten off more than you can chew. It's perfectly normal. And I said as such to Paul, and he soldiered on and moved through. But it wasn't the first and only jitter. There was another more, we'll call it a more serious jitter, a little bit later on in the build. I remember Paul getting in touch with me, and he's like, look, can I just return all of the kit? I think I'm going to fill it all in and buy a plastic shell tub. So with a bit of coaching and a bit of persuasion, I managed to convince Paul that it was worth soldiering on with the build, and he got to it and crept on. With the walls done, it was then time to render the surface. So when you're using block, you've put your blocks to create the walls, you've got your plumbing through the walls, you've then filled those blocks with the rebar and the concrete for the strength. But on the inside of the tub, you're still left with kind of a rough block-like finish. So what you do is you actually render the surface flat, and you can see that's happened behind me here. Once that surface is rendered flat and it's then cured, it's then time to add the waterproofing. So the waterproofing layer is super important. You've got to get that right. You don't want to create a sieve that is just going to leak water. So the waterproofing layer is really, really important. Again, if you've watched lots of videos on this channel, maybe you haven't, my waterproofing materials of choice in the USA is a product called Hydroban Cementitious Waterproofing Membrane, and that's from a company called Laticrete. Over in Europe, it is Ardex S7 Plus, and that is from a company called Ardex. They're both great products. They both work really, really well. They do the same job, but what you're doing is you're putting in a waterproofing layer before your actual finished surface. So whether it's a painted surface, whether it's a tiled finish, you want that waterproofing layer in there as well. So with the waterproofing layer done, it was then time for Paul and his sons to work on the exterior of the tub. He's built it out of block, so what he's actually gone for in terms of a construction is a block cavity. So you have a layer of block, you've got your plumbing in the middle, and then you need to cover it up, because with the plumbing showing, it's going to look a little sightly, and that's what's going on in the image behind me. Once that was complete, it looked like this. Very, very tidy indeed. And that cover is just a temporary cover. I think it's some insulation that's then been wrapped in polythene to make it waterproof, keep that rain and the humidity out. And that's just going to be a temporary cover that Paul is going to put on the tub until he's finished with the whole project. Now, some of the control room work was going on in tandem, but I've kind of split this video, so the time frames are maybe slightly different to the order that I'm going through here. So it wasn't a case of completely finishing everything on the outside before he looked at the control room, but just for the purpose of this video, we're going to deal with the control room as one section. So as I said earlier, the control room for Paul's build is going in the basement of his home, and this was the image that he sent me back at some point in 2024 when we were designing that he wanted this area to become his control room. Okay, so in the style of my TikTok videos, this was how Paul started with his control room. This is how it looks now. What a transformation. So let's dive in and take a look at some of these parts and what's going on here. So we've got the filter in place, we've got the circulation pump, we've got the jet pump. Those are pretty obvious. I'm sure you can identify those yourselves. We've also got in there, right in the center, a heat exchanger. So what Paul is actually doing is he's circulating round the outside. So the water of the hot tub and the water of the heat exchanger are totally separate. The water of the hot tub flows through the center of the heat exchanger, but what's happening is he's using the water that circulates through his central heating system for his home to actually heat the hot tub water. So the water from his home heating system flows around the outside of the heat exchanger. As the water from the hot tub passes through the center, it absorbs the heat through the plates and it heats up the hot tub. So he's already heating his home, he's already incurring that expense. So what he's doing with the heat exchanger is basically extracting some free heat because he's already paying for it and using it to heat his hot tub. So it's quite a clever way of doing things. You do need to have some electro valves on the actual heat exchanger itself. And the reason being, you have to treat it like a room of your home. So when it's up to temperature, the room or the heat exchanger will actually turn off and it will stop the water flowing around the outside, because if the water continues to flow, the hot tub will continue to heat. And the only way to stop the heat exchanger heating is to cut the flow of water that heats up the plates that's flowing around the outside. So you treat it just like a regular radiator in your home, and you treat it like a separate room. So it turns off the flow, it turns off, if you like, the heat exchanger, but it's a really clever way of utilizing heat from energy that you're already using, because you're already using it to heat your home. So it's a great way of doing things. You'll also notice in there he's got a UV system, and we'll come and look at this again because he's not very happy with the way that this particular UV system's working for him, so he's looking to change it. However, this is the current state of play. The UV system is in there. It's a way of reducing the amount of chemicals that you actually use in your hot tub. UV kills everything that passes through it. However, you still need to have some kind of active agent in the water itself. So with a UV system, you can move to totally non-chlorine or non-bromine by using some active oxygen, or with the UV, you can use much smaller amounts of chlorine or bromine, and what that does is it just keeps the water looking healthy. So UV kills everything. So if you think the water itself is nice and healthy, but it needs to look nice, and to make it look nice, you need to add something into the tub itself to make sure it stays nice and clear. Okay, so Paul's got the exterior of the tub pretty much done. We've seen that the control room is in place. So has he finished? Well, here is the current state of play. As you can see, Paul and the family have made it into the tub, but I will let you into a secret, it's not actually finished. So with those weathers in New York, he was running massively out of time before the snow and the ice arrived. So the goal that Paul had was to get the tub working in a way that he could run it through the winter, and then he's going to revisit the interior because he wants to tile it, and tiling is a slow process. The temperatures were starting to drop. He just ran out of time. So we're actually going to revisit Paul's build in the spring, but as you can see, he's in the tub, it's working, he's enjoying it. And Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you through all of the different issues. I was looking through, and there's hundreds of emails that we've had, plus all the WhatsApps and the video calls, and it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully you actually enjoyed the process, even with those couple of wobbles along the way, and thank you ever so much for sending through all of the pictures that you have. Now, can I help you with your DIY hot tub or plunge pool? If I can, then please do get in touch. I'm always happy to hear from you. As always, I appreciate the view. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I will see you on the next video. If you've liked this video, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next video.